But the piano, David, not because of the statue, but because its weather was so bad.
They had it's inside now, thank heavens.
They have it.
And here they have some vacuums set up so that you can see what the marble looks like. So it looks like in the background. Yeah. We were really impressed when we came here. And that's where you end up. Supper place.
Oh, yeah. You ever been through the Corning glass?
Those are just office workers. They aren't even. I think John is taking. I feel like it's going to
Is this the way we go?
Sugar shed. Oh, those beautiful leaves. Blueberry muffins.
What are you doing? Why don't you put that thing down instead of always battering it in somebody's face? Huh? How are those muffins?
They're great.
I told you you had to use the oil and not that lousy margarine. Margarine has so much junk in it.
Now listen, Mary.
No, it does. Read the package.
I'll make you disappear, Martha. Hocus pocus, rotten eggs, and dirty socks, and she's gone. Kidney. Oh, Kathy's flowers are so beautiful. What? What, kitty? That was perfect timing. I was trying to film a little bit of this for the TDs since we lost that first roll.
Yeah.
Good morning, Thelma.
Gee, that was a shame. That thing.
Yeah, particularly losing
Good
bread loaf.
morning.
Good morning, Brennan.
What a beautiful day.
Isn't it gorgeous?
Another boring, beautiful day in Vermont.
Just another.
You have a good sleep?
Well, I had a better one than John. I think his dinner reminded him that it was awfully peppery.
Is that right?
Well, it wasn't the dinner. It was the sermon I had to prepare. So I got up and did some work on it.
Oh, well, he was up during the night, so that kind of.
You want to help your mom? Ken?
What were you thinking about, your sermon?
Yep.
Yeah. Unaccustomed as I am.
What's the topic of your sermon?
The topic of it?
What's it generally going to be about?
I'm talking about rolling the stone back from the past.
Rolling your stone. You need a little.
Interesting bird. I can't figure out what it is. Guy Pilato will know. Is that granite or marble? Probably granite, huh?
I think they got into a fight today, or did somebody walk away?
What to do something, gather up, and then the other
Going home. Not gonna eat forever. And you'll be working around.
That's what does it.
Yeah, so when we go home, everybody is going to be coming the opposite direction.
Right.
That's nice. That is nice.
Can I make you a peanut butter cracker?
No.
I bet Mark would like one.
No, thank you.
What?
Mm-mm. I had enough. I ate some this morning.
Well, are the Marks going to be back here next year, or what's the deal?
Oh.
Sure could.
If we have the strength, I think we'll go to Norway at least one more time. I wish we could get John and Carol on the mountain. He'd lose his mind at the mountains.
When are you going to Norway? When would you go?
We have no reservation.
No plans.
Well, there's
It
no
would
law
have to
that
be
says,
in the summer.
there's no law that says you can't go to Norway and Vermont.
No.
Well, it's
Sure.
so beautiful there in September. You wouldn't believe how beautiful it is. It's like Pennsylvania. It has so many trees. And they turn.
Well, you could come
Maybe
here
we
first
could-
and then go to Norway after.
I think we well, we could either way. Because we did go in September
Oh, we had a
once, and it
wonderful
was
time.
nice. We don't want to go in July. No, it's, everybody has a vacation in July.
Mm-hmm.
That, this cousin of mine that's a doctor said that the nurses absolutely take July and August off.
Just July.
Just July?
Just
How do
July.
they do that? They walk out. Who
Well,
works in the hospital?
nobody, it's completely short on staff. They don't do, in the month of July, they don't do any type of elective procedure whatsoever. It's only
The
emergency
nurses have the time
procedures.
I wonder if people get less sick.
I don't think so.
Everybody
It
is,
must be nice to be able to time their illnesses.
You'd like that.
Great, I love it. I tell everybody to be sick in January, February, and March. October, November, that's fine. Nobody gets sick around Christmas. Nobody gets sick in the summertime. We'd have it made.
yeah,
We'd have it just like the teachers do. We have the whole summer off.
well, yeah, right, I should say.
Lead the cushy life.
Well, the nurses do in Norway. They just have it all. They just...
Well, it isn't just the nurse, everybody takes off. There isn't anything going on in Norway in the month of July that's elective. It is the time of vacation, and they have a good time, believe you me.
Ray, when you were in Norway, was the did you meet your grandparents?
My grandparents, my two grandfathers died long before I was born.
Uh-huh.
And my grandmother from Trondheim was in this country, and she often stayed winters with us. But we have been at the farm where she was born quite often, but never saw her in Norway.
Never saw her. No. So you saw one of your grandmothers. Was that on your mother's side or dad's side?
Oh, Grandma Colin.
My grandma Mort was from Norway. My grandma Colin was damn Yankee.
Oh, that damn cat. Look at her. How'd she get in?
But
Pardon me.
He knew both his grandmothers.
yeah, Grandma Colin lived on the Wood Lake farm.
Oh, she lived on the Wood Lake farm. That's right.
In 1923 she died, and my grandma Mort died in 1929, if I'm right.
And when they asked her to go to church with them, she said, I want to go to a church where they speak God's language, Norwegian.
That's what they always kidded about, but she never did. But it makes a good story.
I think God's particular. She only speaks Italian.
And that's
What about your grandparents?
mine.
Yeah.
My grandmother was born in this country when her parents immigrated.
That's
landed-
Leafy's mother?
What?
Is that Leafy's mother?
Yes. When they landed in Quebec, and she was born after they landed there.
Mm-hmm.
And they took a long time coming across the country. He bought a covered wagon, her father did, and they stopped and worked all the way along.
Mm-hmm.
And she was about 6 years old then when they finally got to where they homesteaded a place. And she would run away from her folks and go to the Indian camp next. There's an Indian camp near them. And she'd run away from home and play with the Indian children and just love them. But her parents punished her when she did that.
Now her name was?
Christine.
That was Christine.
That was Christine. She lived to be almost 90. Tremendous lady.
She certainly was. Yeah.
Tremendous.
I knew her, and she was
Very
lovely.
special. She never had any homemade remedies for anything. Everybody was to seek medical help.
Yeah.
Is that a good idea?
So she was the first one born in this country then?
Yeah, of the family.
On that? Uh-huh. Wow. And how about Carl's?
What?
Did you meet Carl's parents?
Oh,
Your-
never.
Never.
They died when I was quite young. And he always wanted to go back to Sweden to see them. They were really fun people. Everybody in that family was musical. He
It
had
must have been fun because
Oh.
Carl was such a fun man.
Oh, he
Yeah.
was.
The two
Yeah.
older
Great guy.
sisters were both, I think one played the violin and one played the organ. And the father and mother both had some instrument. And the whole family made music together. His youngest brother was about 10 years younger than he was.
Was Carl 68 when he died?
What?
76.
He was 76?
He would have been 78 if he'd lived till April 19th.
Oh, he was 77.
So he was 77.
And Grandma Norman died right before he did. That was awfully close.
You mean right after?
Right after.
Right after he did, yeah.
Mhm.
That was that winter of '62 when we had so many inches of snow. How many inches did we have? Do you remember? Something like 78 inches. Everybody was driving with a little red thing on the aerial.
Little red flag,
Uh,
handkerchief.
and we'd sail up to Minneapolis in the car as often as we possibly could to see my dad. He had that kind of leukemia that little kids get. That, what do you call it? Oh, it's
Myelogenous
what?
leukemia?
Yeah.
Myelogenous leukemia.
And all his buddies where he worked came and donated blood. But it just, I don't think they can save people with that anymore, can they? They can't. I wish.
What with bone marrow transplants?
Yeah.
Sometimes medication arrests it too.
But he sure went fast.
Yeah, that's because
The little red button going.
So the sermon's gonna be on the sins of wine.
I think as far as your sermon, it might help you to save the last half of the bottle of wine until half an hour before.
Well, Martha,
what?
when you were over in Italy at
Città Sant'Angelo.
Sant'Angelo, did you hear any stories about your grandparents, great-grandparents?
No, because most of the people that we talked to didn't know them.
They didn't even know our parents.
No, they didn't know them.
Isn't that strange?
Well, my father left in 1905, and so he was only
He wasn't very old.
17.
17.
And then apparently he went back for a couple years and then came back
To America.
to America. I think he went back for about 5 years. I think he was here for about 3 years and went back for about 5 years. I think either before the war.
World War II.
Yeah. I don't
No,
know.
one.
I never
One.
know World War I.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know the years that
I don't either.
he went back. And apparently he had a brother that came with him and went back and then stayed there. And had 2 sisters, Antoinette and Grace.
Did you
And
name
had
your
a,
mother named Gracie after her?
Had
don't
brother
know.
Philip. And the family tree is in the 2 books that I wrote one for Chris and one for
What was his first name? Your
My-
father's first name?
Giacomo,
Giacomo.
which means James.
It's James.
Yes, Giacomo the carpenter. And he has a son who can't nail 2 pieces of wood together. Make
You're
them
pretty
stay.
good.
Does,
Look at all the things he did. He
does
painted your
Belanti
house
have
on
any
K
special
Street.
meaning in Italian?
We like to think so.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't know what the translation is.
No
No.
idea.
It's a
It
beautiful
could
name.
be, yeah.
It's just
Bella means
music
nice.
name.
That much
Bella.
we know.
Bella.
Well, anti
Bella's
means against,
beautiful.
so it's against being nice.
Against being nice.
Or against rebellion, against war. I don't know. The interesting thing is, I didn't realize how close Siena was to Città Sant'Angelo. And if you go back in history, the Belantis were a famous family who vied for power with the Medicis.
Oh.
Is that right?
Yeah, now we learned that from Marilyn Keith. And the Belantis were from Siena. Now whether any of the Belantis that were in Città Sant'Angelo stemmed from or were offspring from those from Siena, I don't know. Every time I meet a Belanti, they're from Sicily. I go to a new town and I call them up and they're all from Sicily.
What about
So I'm wondering if the origin of the Belantis came from Sicily. I really wonder.
Well,
In
what,
fact, the guy and I get along so well together, I begin to wonder if there's
but
something.
what about the,
Uh,
you have a girl cousin that came to visit you and she was going to Penn State?
yeah, that's Susan Belanti.
Yeah.
Now her father is, I think he still lives in Clark Summit, Pennsylvania, but he does have an apartment in New York City. But he is rather unfriendly, or maybe not unfriendly isn't the word. He doesn't seem to have much contact with the family, although he does have a lot of contact with Susan. And I understand Susan's twin brothers are trying to make it in music, and something I think he's not too keen about. And I know one of them was in the paper in State College for some little violation. Do you remember what that was, Carolyn?
No, I don't.
Violation. I don't know whether he's still in State College or not. Is now living in La Crosse?
La Crosse, Wisconsin.
La Crosse, Wisconsin.
That's right on the way to Worthington.
And she has 3 children, you said, right? She just had a little baby girl. We got this wonderful letter that disappeared, right, Carolyn? Or the address disappeared?
Right, she had only put the address on the envelope. We had the letter, but we lost her address. We need to give her a call and get the number and get the address because she's such a lovely girl. Her husband is an oncologist, and he works, there's a clinic there called the Gunderson Clinic, and he's working there at La Crosse in the Gunderson Clinic.
Maybe someday we'd have to stop when we go through.
I
Yeah,
think you should.
I don't know when we're going to go to Minnesota again.
Well, it'll be soon, because you're going to want to see how happy your daughter is.
Well, maybe she needs a year away from us.
Whatever Paula suggests, it would be a good time to come. I think that we will see you in Minnesota.
I think you may be right. Or maybe you'll see me in Minnesota.
Yeah, I bet we'll see you both.
I think Martha
It feels
will be
strange giving one back to the state.
there. Beg pardon?
It feels strange giving one back to the
It's
state.
only fair. Just fair.
You took one away from Minnesota.
I know.
No.
You're just
I
getting,
know. That must have been hard for you guys, was it?
no, no.
Well, second thought, living with her for 29 years, I guess it was pretty easy, huh, to get rid of her.
I tell you,
Now let's hear the truth, Thelma.
the truth is, we hated to see her go, but she was happy, and that's what we wanted. And she loved all of you.
No, she doesn't love me. She only pretends. Right.
Would you like to say that again, Martha, for the camera?
I said she doesn't love me. She only pretends. As John would say, she only gets the good silver out for you, and when my family comes, she only uses the everyday stuff.
We've
I
been
never
teasing
noticed
her
what
about
she's
that
got
for a
on.
long time.
Oh, we never know. It's just that Johnny bugs her all the time, and he tells her these dumb things. But just to make her angry.
I don't do it to make her
Well, when we come to your house, you get the sterling out.
Well,
Makes no difference.
And then to fly over it, it's just beautiful. I've never
Well,
flown that way.
when you can see them up the hill, it just is it's a beautiful sight for a beautiful little city. But it must be pretty tough walking up those steep hills and down.
It must be, but you know something? When we were up there, Chris and I both noticed this one small girl at the same time. She was walking through the fields and getting ready to go up the hills, and she was the first one, and there were a flock of sheep behind her. And I couldn't get my camera out fast enough to take a picture. But it was just so typical of what you see in another country, leading the sheep, and they were just following
Chris was
along.
really
She had
impressed with Cheetah Santangelo.
Yeah, she had a shepherd's crook and the whole bit,
Yeah.
and it was interesting.
What was your reactions when you were there?
Oh, I can't even say. I just had mixed emotions.
It was a thrill.
Yeah,
It was a thrill.
it was kind of speechless. You walk through the town and all those crazy things that went through your head. You just walk through the town and look.
All those crazy things?
All those crazy things that went through your head, like my
Sure.
father walked here. I wonder if any of my other relatives walked here. I wonder what it would have been like if he would have never left. You know,
He almost
but-
didn't. He went
Yeah.
back to Italy for 5 years, didn't he? Was it after he? Didn't you say a while back that he went back?
Yeah, he came to this country, and I didn't know that he went
What do you
back.
remember about him?
Unfortunately, the only thing that I remember about him is that he was mighty sick, because most of the time he spent with his son. His son and we'd go to. It was a typical Italian male. He spent all his time with his son.
And he knew he wasn't going to live.
Well, but he was sick. The last years of his life were like when I was 8, 9, 10. And so before that, I don't have a whole lot of recollection of all the things because he did most of the things with John. Saturday mornings he went to church and he came home and he was always with John.
Well, that's typical of European
Absolutely.
fathers.
Absolutely. So the memories I have of him were mostly those memories when he was ill.
And he was awfully sick.
And he really was sick.
It was
Oh, I
his-
mean, we have other memories of him, but
it
not
was his
as
lungs.
many.
It wasn't his lungs.
No, it was his kidneys.
His what?
Kidneys.
Kidneys.
Did you remember him as stern or?
Yes, I remember him as being very stern. Very stern. Didn't want anyone to wear makeup. My aunts would come in the house with makeup and he'd tell them to take it off. You weren't allowed to go out. Girls weren't allowed to go out. They had to stay home with mom.
That's,
He was just a typical
that was the way it was
old-
where he grew up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I always remember him walking with a cane because he used to get the cane and get us by the crook with the crook of the cane and pull us to him, and then he did used to do that.
One swat?
One swat. I don't remember him as being nasty.
No.
You know,
I wouldn't
just stern. Just, you know, this is the way it's got to be done, and that's it.
Well, and that's the way he was brought up.
Yeah. He wasn't nasty.
No.
One of my memories of him is when I went to school, and I would tell about the people that I met that I liked, and if they had an Italian name, they were all right. But if they didn't have an Italian name, you know, he wanted me to stay away from him. And I can remember I said, "Well, is Philip Simone Italian?" He said, "Oh yeah, he's Italian, so that's a good boy." Okay. And then I said, "What about Carol Steffen?" He said, I can remember wanting many of my friends to be Italian, so he would approve of them.
He was a lot older than your mother. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember him on Union Street?
Not really.
You don't? You don't remember his garden?
Oh, I remember his garden, and I remember some of the things that he did. But you know, as to having any time with his with his daughters, I really don't recall that.
Do you remember his canna lilies?
Calla lilies?
Calla lilies. That's right, calla lilies.
They were on Hay Street, though. The calla lilies were on Hay Street, down in the corner.
The calla lilies were in the big tires on Union Street. Don't you remember the big tires?
I remember the tire, but I don't recall the
Yeah,
calla lilies.
inside the tires were the calla lilies. That's one of my memories.
Yeah,
So I used to
remember the
play
tire.
with my trucks on those tires. I used to run my little trucks on them, and he had those beautiful calla lilies. They were red. Remember them?
I just do not remember them, but I do remember the garden.
What do you remember about Union Street?
That over the back of our backyard was the jail.
Yeah, that's right.
And that Caroline Pirro lived down the other side of Union Street where you could walk to the end. There was a stone wall and you could look down and see the Lehigh River.
Right.
I remember those things about Union Street.
Was this in Easton?
This was in Easton. And the jail was right behind our house, and the courthouse was down the street. And there was a Catholic school on the other side of the street.
Uh-huh.
Did they send
Down
you
the
to
corner.
Catholic school or public school?
I went to Catholic school for just a short time when I was in first grade, and then we moved to Wilsonboro. And then I didn't go to Catholic school after then I went to public school.
You went to St. Bernard's, right?
St. Bernard's,
Mhm.
because that was right close.
Do you remember
Right
the
on the
family
hill.
that lived across the street from us?
The Matraxias. The Matraxias lived across the street, and right there in the alley lived, I'll remember his name eventually. Who are you looking for, Kathy? Don't be sorry. Is that your cat?
No, I'm the cat I'm feeding. Is her name?
Italian war hero, and my uncle said no, and I went like this, and he got so angry. He was really angry. Well, that people giving up, you know.
Oh,
But
yeah.
and he got angry. He said, "Oh, Italians never give up. They fall with the best of them." Well, I got a
Well,
lecture.
you know who was an Italian? Napoleon.
I thought he was French.
We came from the island of Corsica.
He came from
Well,
the
that's
island
true.
of
He did,
Corsica.
but I still.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
He was Italian. He was born in the Italian soil. I don't know what he was, but he
I thought Columbus was.
Yeah.
well, Columbus never did discover America.
Sure he did. Yeah, these
Well, he
people
was
probably
too late
think it was
anyway.
Indonesian.
Now she scoots off.
The Vikings had already done the job.
You know,
Here
the
comes my
one,
cat.
She found it.
What's he have to say, your venerable father?
What's he have to say, your venerable father?
Thanks.
yeah,
I want to hear the Scandinavian point of view.
no, one of the most asinine things that I have seen or heard so far this year is that there's a group that are saying because of the plight of the Indians and what happened to the Indians in many years following Columbus's coming, they shouldn't celebrate the 500th anniversary of Columbus Day.
Finding this country.
And that's really the most asinine thing that I've ever heard. He was really a great man, and he really accomplished something.
He accomplished a lot.
And it should be a great celebration.
And he was Italian.
Yeah.
Sure, I knew that.
I only feel that so many of the Scandinavians, or Leif Erikson and people like that, got here long before Columbus. Maybe not Leif, but others.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that's because they were headed toward Italy.
Yeah.
Hunting for Italy. They were hunting for Italy.
They were looking for Italy and found it.
Oh, dear. We're trying to find a new way to India to get spices and such.
Well, not my cat anyway.
Well, good.
Well, I hope Loki shows up.
Well, I hope Loki does. I'm worried.
Otherwise, we're going to have a very low-key celebration tonight.
Yeah, right. How about that?
Yep. Well, do you think we should go in
I think
and
we should
start
put on some corn
manufacturing
and
some
I'll
food?
send
Well, someday, Martha, I'd like to compare my memories of Union Street with yours.
Of what?
John, you always have that gun in somebody's face.
I
Are you okay? Yeah. Oh, I heard you. The way you looked, I thought something happened.
You know what happened? I cleared my throat and I got some cracker up the back of my nose.
Oh.
I got that on film, Carol. Aren't you glad?
I really appreciate that.
You want to say anything for the West Coast?
No, we don't want to say anything for the West Coast. Except we'd like you to put that thing away.
Pretty looping.
No.
Pennsylvania.
Where is north of?
You said you had a good time.
Yes, I did.
thankful when it was all over. I said, thank God they're married now.
You were thankful that it was all over. You mean you did enjoy it while it was going on?
Well, I enjoyed it, but I was very grateful and very thankful that the wedding was all over and everything else. Then nothing happened to me in that few seconds there. I thought I was a goner.
What do you mean you were gone? For what?
Huh. You don't know how I felt there for a few seconds.
When?
When I had to sit down.
When you had to sit down?
Yeah.
Oh.
Mom, what are you talking about?
I know. So you were not feeling well. You just felt dizzy, or like
No,
you're
I
gonna.
just felt as if I was going to get out of this world.
Really?
Yes,
Wow.
I did.
Was your heart beating, or?
No, my heart wasn't beating. I was just going in another atmosphere.
No, that was at the reception. Wasn't at the wedding.
No, it was right after the wedding and everything. Everybody was having the hors d'oeuvres and all.
Oh, well, that was at the reception.
Yeah. I
We
says,
did-
gee, God, don't make anything happen to me here.
Wow. But how long did it last?
And just about 5 minutes, not even.
And then you're all right, huh?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I felt fine after that.
Well, what do you think of those pictures?
Wonderful. These pictures are all grand.
Mm-hmm. So you got 4 grandchildren married.
Thank God they're married. Thank God. I don't have to worry anymore.
Well, you don't know about that.
No. Why? What do you mean? Well, I don't have to worry about them. They got married nicely,
Mhm.
everything fine. So, what complaint do I have?
I don't know.
I don't have no complaint.
So what do you do during braces all week? Anything exciting?
Like I'm doing now, sitting down and trying to do what I do here, do down there, and she hollers at me, and when I try to overdo it,
Did you look at the tomatoes in the back, Mom?
you're terrible.
They look green when I look.
Oh.
I didn't see any red.
They're not terrible, they're just not right. Takes a while for them to ripen up, Mom.
They should be right for this time.
Hey there, Carolyn. Boy, it's warm in here, isn't it?
Yeah, we don't have air conditioning, John.
That's the first lamp. Is the second lamp. Third lamp. And my sister wonders why I tease her about her